Hey there, guys. Welcome to this season finale edition here of the Cover One Buffalo podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Quinn. I'm a little emotional today. Obviously, we had our final day ever with Kyle Williams, the guy that has led us through the last 13 years. Majority of the drought was here, the cornerstone of all that. So I'm a little emotional, a little out of whack today, but I'm here joined by Greg Thompson. How you doing, my man?
Good. Same thing, man. It's just hard to kind of fathom what got us to this point and how things are, how we got here. But it was an amazing day and a lot of exciting things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? Because going into this show, before we heard the Kyle Williams news, I thought that the show was just going to be one of those ones that I just have to get on and do with you. With really no interest, no real points outside of the development we keep talking about. Obviously, the Kyle Williams news comes out this week. A lot more excitement about the game, even though the game itself doesn't matter. And then, obviously, the Bills leading up to the game and all the stuff we saw on the social media. Thing you did on Twitter, offering to buy fans tickets to the game because you couldn't go. Super classy move by you. I want to give you a little credit for that.
Thank you, man.
Just you saw a lot of what he means to this community, the team, other players in the league tweeting things out, guys that never played with him, only played against them a handful of times. You just saw the appreciation, and then it kind of all culminated today with, you saw it at the end of the game, Sean McDermott, getting him the pass play, and then also allowing him one last walk off, and it was just it made otherwise totally irrelevant game very much relevant for us.
Yeah, I think they handled it absolutely perfectly. You could tell McDermott had multiple chances. Him out there as a fullback 3 times I counted. The pass route, the whole idea, obviously a very intentional plan to honor and to reward and to appreciate and thank, just an incredible lifelong Buffalo Bill. And it's absolutely was the right thing to do. It was amazing, and I couldn't have asked for a better day.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about Kyle a little bit more before we get into it here today. Obviously, this is our final episode of the season for the, what we were doing all season long. But do not worry. We are going to be here. Greg and I are going to be with you. We're going to join you throughout this offseason process because 2018 is wrapping up here. And it was a interesting year, a lot of, hard weeks to come on here and talk to you guys after, tough losses and stuff like that. But we have a really interesting lineup of content that we're going to continue to bring you here through the offseason. So make sure that you have liked, subscribed either to the YouTube channel to get the notification bell clicked over there to make sure when we go live, you're live with us, or go over to wherever you subscribe to your favorite podcast and make sure you subscribe, review, and like, and make sure you stay tuned to all of our social media accounts because we're going to be bringing you tons of content. Really, our content just starts to really ramp up now that we've gotten through this really tough season. A 6-win season isn't easy to continue to provide content through, but this offseason is going to be really exciting. So make sure you head over to cover1.net. Check out the premium subscription too, because that premium content's only going to continue to ramp up as we get into the scouting reports that these guys were doing. I just worked on a graphic the other day for Eric for the scouting reports. He had me doing graphics for all the guys' scouting reports last year. So I was doing them all individually, and I said, this year I got to make a template because they do so many of them that it's hard to keep up with how much content that they're putting out. So if you love that type of content and want to prepare yourself for the draft, definitely head over to Cover One. Check out the premium subscriptions. It's the best value, I think, out of all these subscriptions I pay for sports stuff. I get more out of the Cover One premium subscription than I do. And it's not just because I do the show, guys. I really get a lot of content. I've become a much smarter football fan out of it. What's your favorite part of the premium subscription, Greg?
I'll add on to what you just said on the learning things. Like I'm a football fanatic. I've been a crazy fanatic my whole life. I can't believe how much I've learned by watching the video breakdowns, how to identify coverages, how to identify blocking schemes. I was always really good with the basics, but I watch it like every other fan, just kind of looking at where the ball is on the TV broadcast and being able to watch the All-22, learn from Eric and all the other guys on how they break things down. I feel a lot more informed watching it. And then my favorite part is the premium channel Slack and just having all the guys in there. I think we're out, is 100 plus in there, and every game day we're at 30, 40 guys all together, watching the game together, chiming in, talking back and forth, all really informed and connected with what's going on. There's some really awesome guys in there from all over the country and all over the world. And it's just a really great community that I feel really connected to and have grown with this year, and can't wait to see what we do going forward with that group.
Yeah, and for those of you that are not a premium member, and if you're here in the YouTube chat or listening to this on the podcast, I don't expect that's going to slow down now that the season's over. It's a great group. Every day I wake up, there's been messages overnight. There's always fun conversations going on, Bills related or not. It's just a good group of people, and obviously there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up and things to talk about. And I know Greg's getting excited when you start talking about salary caps and free agents, and it is though. It's fun time for fans to really engage with each other on things that we want this team to do, because the 2019 offseason has been talked about so much. I don't know that any offseason in my adult life has been so hyped up and look forward to this one. And we're almost here. We're on the doorstep of 2019 now. So it's a great time to head over to cover1.net, check out the premium subscription, and get on in with the brotherhood of Bills fans that we've created over there. Also, while you're over at cover1.net or on your phone listening to this, check out whatever app store you have, whether it's Android or iOS. We do have an app. So all the content, when it comes out and it gets published to the site, goes right to you. So if you're sitting at work, trying to make it look like you're working, but really want to do something else, our articles will come right over to you. As you'll be the first one to see them. So make sure you head over there and do that. But let's get right back into this, because it's the final week. We do want to talk about the game before we jump into a plethora of offseason talk throughout the rest of the year here. Let's go back to Kyle Williams a little bit, because 13 years, one playoff appearance. Obviously, he's a Wall of Famer. The one thing I feel the worst though about Kyle, but I think that he seems to be the happiest about, is I think that the team is really right on the cusp of making the turn that you would have liked to see him be a part of. Obviously, they got to the playoffs once, but the dude had to just live through some of the worst experiences of this franchise. And I hate the fact that as he's passing the torch, I think that the future is the brightest it's been.
Yeah, it is really tough. I would love to have seen him be here for 2 more years, where I think that we're going to, not that all of a sudden I think we're going to win a Super Bowl or something crazy, but I do think there's some legitimate competitive football coming up here and some legitimate chances at a playoff run. And I would have loved to have seen him be the cornerstone of that and be the guy giving those pregame and postgame speeches and the heart and soul of this team, which is what he's been. And, we got into it, and I think some other fans trying to, chop down at what's going on. Nobody's trying to say that he's Reggie White or that he's some all-time great overall player, but he's an all-time great Bill. He's someone who is so married to the franchise and so dedicated to it. And like he talked about in his presser yesterday or on Friday, that he came here as a 22-year-old kid and has lived the rest of his life here. He's only lived in 2 places his whole life, in Louisiana and Buffalo. He's been a small town guy. He's dedicated his family. He's had 5 kids here, with his marriage, and everything has gone great of being here. And he's invested everything into this city, this franchise, this team. And it's, it would have been great to have him here for what looks like a bright future, but I think that he feels comfortable. He's handing it off to capable hands, and that I know they were very coy about it, but you can tell that McDermott has planted a seed about a role for him going forward. And I don't want anyone to read into that as he's all of a sudden going to be a coordinator or defensive line coach. It's not. I don't think he's looking for the grind of coaching, but I do think he's going to be connected to the team and available and present with the organization for sure in 2020. I could see him taking a full 2019 to his family and himself, but I think going forward, we'll see him around this team, and that's a spirit and a kind of person that you want around your guys.
Yeah, he'll be around this team whether or not he's physically here or not. Obviously, throughout the year they talked about, you had where he had Edmonds take over the team meetings, things like that. He instilled enough where his legacy is going to linger, whether or not he's physically in the building. But I agree with you. I think I heard that same press conference and immediately thought McDermott maybe slipped up a little bit in what he was saying, and that there might be some role built in for Kyle, and I don't blame them. You heard it years ago. I think Eric Wood was on WGR talking about he's never seen anybody be able to break down film the way Kyle Williams does. But back to him on the field, I agree with you. I don't even think he's always been the best player on any Bills defense. I think longevity is something that is important. I think that consistency is something that's important, and he provided those 2 things for some really bad teams and was a spot of hope and optimism for fans that didn't have much else. Guys that, throughout that drought, guys wanted to get out of Buffalo. Really good players wanted to be away from Buffalo, and he always came back. He never got the sense that he was going to go anywhere else, and here we are, 13 years, and that just doesn't happen in sports that much anymore. So that makes it all that more special for us. So I can't wait to be there when he does go up on the Wall of Fame. I'm going to be definitely buying tickets for that one. But here, let's get back to the game itself and get into your favorite segment of the game. And I want to hear about your gruntled, disgruntled. So give me your game team.
On the positive side, it's actually a tough game because there was a lot of good choices. So obviously your heart goes to Kyle. It was a fun game to see him there. He did catch a pass. I would have loved to have seen him get that sack to get the other performance bonus in his contract. But I think that there's a tie. It's hard to pick between Josh Allen and Zay Jones. They were both probably statistically their two best games of the season and of their careers. You know, Josh Allen going for 3 passing touchdowns and 224, and then another 95 and 2 more rushing touchdowns.
And 65%.
5 total touchdowns is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then Zay, 6 catches, 93 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Did some really nice work. So, you know, I think the two of them really can share it very deservingly. And, you know, obviously ending on that kind of note offensively is huge. I thought Dable called a great game today and had a lot of positives going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you that they can easily share it, but I think I would push and advocate for Zay Jones getting my gruntle, just because you start with the year that he had in the offseason and how awful that was, and whether or not he was even going to be on this team, you know, and then he comes back, has a slow summer, and then some ups and downs here throughout the year. You saw it. You know, I got excited about him. Then again, he goes back to dropping some balls. I really like that he finishes the year on a strong note. I believe momentum's real, whether it's in the game or in your career. And I like that he finished the season on a strong note and can take that performance into the offseason with some confidence, build himself up some confidence. You saw a little bit of a connection with him and Josh. Josh continued to go to him throughout the game. So that could be a really good sign for Bills fans. I've been saying it all along, man. If Zay can really figure it out and build consistency, he'll never be a world beater, I don't think, but he just makes it so you have his contract control. It makes that pick a little bit more palatable, trading up to get him. I think it's just a win for everybody in the Bills organization if he can just develop into the guy we saw today with some consistency. So I'm going to push for Zay to get my gruntled because I just like the way he ended the campaign. Now, disgruntled, where are you at?
Disgruntled, again, a kind of a good problem to have. There really wasn't an obvious one, so I'll go to kind of the whipping boy that we've had for a while, and the combination of Matt Darr and Danny Crossman and the special teams overall. You know, I think that we averaged 37 yards a punt. We missed a field goal, and on a game where, you know, I don't, obviously it's fair to question whether Hauschka should be out there. Had a couple iffy punt return, you know, decisions by McKenzie. Nothing special on kick returns. Gave up a couple nice returns to them. So again, just another overall poor special teams day. And I guess the one solace or silver lining of that is that thank God we didn't have some miraculous, amazing performance that Crossman could cling to. I'm hoping that obviously we see a new offensive or special teams coordinator going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I had Darr specifically, and it doesn't matter because he will not be on this roster next year anyway. So it's a good disgruntled to finish the year with. And I don't know. I agree with you. I'm hoping that Danny Crossman is also not part of this organization moving forward. And then kind of to your point, though, with the Hauschka thing, and I don't know who it is. I think the blame ultimately has to go on McDermott, and Bean is the managing here of Stephen Hauschka over the last month. I don't know what really happened. Obviously, something happened in the Jets game, but I don't really love how his injury and position and everything leading up here to the final of the season was managed, and it concerns me. I just don't know, like, is he going to need off-season surgery to repair whatever injury he has? They've been really hush on kind of what the injury is. I don't like it, and it smells funny to me, and I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I guess I'm being optimistic and hoping that it's the injury and that maybe it looks good during practice and he's feeling okay, but then when he really tries to uncork it, there's something missing. But coming up short on a 42 and 43 yard field goal is just so out of character for a guy he set the NFL record for the most consecutive 50 plus yard field goals. Yeah. The man's got a cannon. So there's obviously something going on. So I'm going to be optimistic and hopeful that a full rested offseason, he comes back, ready to go. I do think it probably gives some level of urgency that we need to pay attention to bringing in some level of competition just in case. Hauschka's not young, so there are some level of concern that we have to have, but I'm going to be hopeful that he'll get back to being house money and we'll be just fine. But I think we do need to have a plan, whether maybe one of those extra 7th round picks, you bring in one of the best college kids, or you sign someone halfway decent. But I'm going to hope that Stephen Hauschka's back and the dependable kicker we've known him to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because obviously if these games mattered and you got a kicker playing like he's played the last month, not good. Do you think any of it has to do with a new holder and Dar? I mean, I thought that maybe the first week, but I figured by a month that would have sorted itself out.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to tell myself that.
Right.
I can't imagine that that's still what it is, but it's possible. I mean, Dar's terrible at everything else at football, so I think it's logical to assume he's also a terrible holder.
Yeah.
So yeah, I maybe,
yeah,
but probably not.
So let's flip over quick to the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, we talked about Allen. The 65% is great. The stats are fantastic. 5 touchdowns are unbelievable. Obviously, that interception at the half is the Josh Allen experience that you really hope that throughout this offseason, he watches his own tape and kind of starts to see the game a little bit differently going into next year, and that he's not trying to fit balls in places where it doesn't belong. You brought up a great point in the Slack channel about that play of fans really complain, why doesn't everybody go for it, and just kneel out to the half. And unfortunately, we saw a prime example of why you don't do that today.
Yeah, and it's easy to say, oh, well, we need a young quarterback to learn from these things, and that we want to be able to go get points, and that there are scenarios where if you're at the 40 and you have a couple timeouts, 54 seconds is plenty. But when you're starting from your own 18 with no timeouts, and we know we have a poorly talented offensive unit, the ratio of potential positive outcomes where we actually go down there with no timeouts and get into scoring position versus the risk of exactly what happened, that's why teams make conservative decisions. And you can tell McDermott was putting his foot on the gas today. We went for it on several 4th downs. He was lined up for another one where Dawkins jumped off sides. We were playing aggressive football today, so I don't mind that that's what they did. And there was really no overall downside, but in future years, as we're growing, I hope we get to the point to where we have an offense that we can feel really confident. Hey, 54 seconds and no timeouts. Let's go down and get some points. And we feel good about that. That's not this offense right now. So it is what it is. It ended up not hurting anything, and we still smoked them. But just for any fans who get frustrated at, hey, why are they kneeling it out? Why don't we try for some points? What's the worst that could happen? That right there is the worst that could happen.
It is literally the worst. And obviously everything with this game and that we're talking about today, you have to obviously take with a grain of salt. The last game, neither team was playing for anything other than moral victories. So going for it there, I don't really particularly care, and I don't know that they would do it if the game mattered and they were jockeying for playoff position. I don't think that's the call they make there. So not reading too much into that, just kind of thought that was an interesting point you brought up, because I see it every time. Well, just go for it. Why are they kneeling now? Let's get points. It's not Madden ultimately. So one thing that I saw, didn't show up again here in the box score, but I think you saw a couple flashes. And I know that people are leaning towards moving on from LaShawn McCoy in 2019 and clearing up that cap space moving forward. I saw vintage LaShawn McCoy a number of times today. You still saw the problems that they've had all year, which I still believe is primarily the offensive line. I don't believe it's a LaShawn McCoy problem, but I saw some reasons that I could be swayed or remain encouraged to see him on the team next year, assuming that they fix the offensive line and you can get maybe not back to the success he had the past 2 years, but closer to that. And if you get closer to that and take some of that pressure off Josh Allen, I think that you can put a team together that you're not worried about just scoring 14 points, but you can really compete with other NFL offenses.
Yeah, there's been a good discussion in the chat between Nathan and Dunny, and it's I'm right in the middle. I started out staunchly in favor of, we definitely need McCoy going forward. I've seen enough glimpses that he's still good, but probably not the exact same guy that he's been, because no one is at 30 and 31 that they are at 24 and 25. But I think that it's so muddy. Our offensive line is so poor that no one could have looked good. And that, the same thing, all the other running backs end up with, iffy yards per carry here and there. And I do think that McCoy still tries to break the big one and tries to bounce it outside. And that's probably exaggerated as a problem when the offensive line is poor. But if we get that fixed, I think he can still have value. Now, I do think his value needs to be as maybe the lion's share of a running back by committee going forward. I'd love to see him get 8 to 12 carries, 4 to 6 targets, and maybe get the most, but maybe 40% with another guy or two getting, 30% and 30%. So I'd love to see us draft a big, strong running back. I know anybody who watched the some of the bowl games here, we saw some pretty tough guys running the ball. I think there's some opportunity for some people to come in. We have 2 fourth-round picks. I'd love to use one of them on a young, strong running back there, and that then into 2020, then we're probably taking over and bringing in somebody else. But I think that McCoy can still contribute, can still do some good things. We can't depend on him as a bell cow, because I don't think he's that anymore. But he still can contribute to a good NFL offense, and I'm okay with that. We have a bajillion cap space dollars next year. So yes, in a vacuum, do I want to pay LaShawn McCoy $9 million versus getting 6.5 of that back as savings? Yeah, in a vacuum, I'd probably take that. But the difference between $95 million in cap space and $102 million is nothing. We don't need that money. I'd rather keep an offensive playmaker.
And that's kind of been my argument the whole time, is when we talk about this huge cap space that the Bills have, they have that with LaShawn McCoy on the books moving forward, and just keep the asset. I agree with you, though, 100%. I think running back's still a priority to get. I don't see a guy on the roster that's the future running back for this team. Chris Ivory is a replaceable guy. He had some nice things that we saw from times, but easily replaceable. And I just don't know that Murphy or Ford are the guys that are really going to pass the torch to. So still a huge priority for me, but I did see the flashes today that I really wanted to see. I'm also glad that, McCoy got into the end zone, had some of those vintage LaShawn McCoy plays that gave me a little more confidence in the position that I've been taking, which is let's just keep him on the roster where he's at and try to build that position for the future, but fix the offensive line. I don't know necessarily that they need to create more holes and more uncertainty on the offense just yet.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And there's a couple guys in here in the chat talking that, I think you can easily do a 2-year plan here. Sure. Ivory's in the same boat as McCoy. He's under contract next year, probably not at a great number, but we don't need the money back. I'd draft a guy next year who pairs with Ivory and McCoy. Then when the two of them, their contracts are up, you probably let them leave. And then you draft another one in 2020. And then you have those two guys with whatever veteran free agent or undrafted free agent is your third guy. I think you can have a 2-year transition plan at running back that can work really well and that will be just fine going forward without spending a ton of money at running back.
Yeah. So the other skill positions, obviously tight end is a huge priority, and we still saw that today. Obviously, Josh Allen had a big game. Charles Clay fairly silent again. He had that one catch that ended up being called back due to a illegal block in the back, I think it was, by Mills. So Clay pretty much silent again. Obviously, I think we all consider him as good as gone. Kroom had a catch that I can remember. I don't know they had much more than one play, maybe 2 plays. We didn't see much out of Logan Thomas except for a vicious crackback block. Nothing else out of him. So huge priority there. I think that Allen could have had a much better year if we had more production out of the tight ends. You usually see rookie quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, and tight ends developing a good relationship. Didn't have that this year. How high of a priority is tight end for the Bills? Are you thinking as high of a priority as round 2? Where would you go?
I think that it's equal in my mind from a tier standpoint. I think offensive line is by far my number 1 priority, probably my top 2 or 3 priorities: center, right tackle, and right guard. Might even all 3 of those might be above the offensive weapon category, but I have tight end equally next to wide receiver, because the way the NFL works nowadays, having that big slot guy of a Zach Ertz or a Travis Kelce, you get me one of those in the early second round. I'd love to have that. I know a lot of people love Noah Fant out of Iowa, and so I'll use his name just because I don't know a lot of the other next tier talent. But you give Allen a guy like that who's tall with a wide catch radius, who can make athletic plays and be a mismatch against safeties and linebackers. I think Allen will use that up the seam and on those crossers all the time, and I think that could be really, really valuable. Now, I still want a wide receiver and some other weapons, but in my mind, a really valuable tight end could be a bigger addition to this offense than adding a wide receiver. So I want both, but I think it should be a top priority.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into the college guys yet. I will start that process actually probably tonight, start digging in. But I actually heard that the tight end class has a nice depth to it. And that kind of happens every year. People get really concerned about that position. And then as the draft process starts to come, you realize it's a lot more deep than people think. So excited about that. We've touched on offensive line, obviously, and wide receivers a ton. Anything else here before we swap over to the other side of the ball that you want to touch on, that any revelations that you had over the last 4 hours?
No. I think it was nice to see some minutes for Ike Botger. I think he got a couple snaps and looked okay. I think that's maybe a depth spot next year, but I think it just reinforced. I think Allen was running for his life an awful lot. So I think that it just reinforced how big of a priority it is. And I'm excited to see what we do with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we're going to get into that next week here on our show, is really kick off the offseason and have a lot of time to talk about that. Switching over to the defense, another really nice performance. Not a great second quarter out of the defense. Again,
it's a little weird, yeah.
It's a very frustrating. I've had a lot of horrible second quarters this year. I don't know why particularly that is. But again, they came out, nice adjustments. They've been doing that also all year, had some nice adjustments. Got a few turnovers. We're hitting Tannehill. I mean, really what we expect to see out of this defense. Kind of your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, besides the short fields that we handed them, we gave up one drive to the Dolphins. I don't think they really had much beyond that the entire game. So you've got to be happy with some of that. And I think that it was probably Tremaine Edmonds' best game of the season, which makes sense for a 20-year-old who was drafted at 19 to be able to go into that kind of mode. But to have the kind of game he put together today is ridiculous. So 11 tackles, a sack, a pass defense, an interception. That's some fantastic football. But if you take away that one drive that they had early on, they put up about 70 yards, 68 yards. Then they had the 55-yarder for the field goal. Everything else beyond that is 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, interception, punt, over and over and over again, fumble. I don't know that they had another drive over 18 yards the whole rest of the game. So the defense really played lights out. You saw, production from all over the board. We saw flash plays from Star Latuele that, you and I spend a weird amount of time defending.
That's so weird.
And then, obviously 2 sacks from Shaq Lawson, another one from Jerry. Just overall production across the board, everybody contributing. I thought, I know Eric has really warned us about a lot of people like Levi Wallace in the kind of pass game, but that he's been really lacking from a tackling standpoint. And I thought he really flashed there today and really looked good. So I'm hoping, I'm excited to see Eric's breakdown after this game, because on the board 8 tackles, and I didn't see any whiffs or any misses that I noticed. So I was encouraged by that. So I thought overall the defense played great. And I will say one player that I didn't really think much of, but I'm going to use as a good analogy for previous years, is Raphael Bush. He is that caliber of player who's the cap space we're going to have is going to allow us to have at a lot of other positions, where he's not a great player, but he's better than the veteran minimum, street free agent guy, and is the player that you can plug in if, God forbid, we didn't lose Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer for long stretches today, but he ended up filling in for Taron Johnson and has been a great contributor and a really solid professional at, 1.25, 1.5 million, just more than the veteran minimum. And now being able to go do that kind of player as your backup at many other spots rather than all street free agents and undrafted free agents, that's going to be the kind of thing we're going to see. And he was just a nice example of that I thought he had a very serviceable season, and it's going to be nice to fill the roster with more Raphael Bushes.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a guy that I think I was very nervous about this year and thought he really had to prove a lot to me to have any chance to stick around. And it was Shaq Lawson. I was waiting. Everybody hypes him up every training camp, says he looks like he's in the best shape of his life. I don't think he'll ever be the guy that he was drafted to be, but you can't necessarily put that on players where they're drafted. And he was drafted by an entirely different regime. So I don't think he'll ever meet the hype of where he was drafted, but he has turned into an actually really solid player this year, and you keep seeing him. You see batted balls, pressures that don't always end up in sacks, but he had a sack today. He was all over the field making plays. He has a good energy about him. I really like the trend that Shaq Lawson's going on. Obviously, seeing Trent Murphy out there a lot more finishing up the year, that's really good to see because he struggled to get on the field at the start of the season. So some of the things on the defense that we like about them, we know about them, I'm seeing things trend up even better in the right direction. And like you said, filling in depth with higher volume depth players moving forward on both sides of the ball is only going to help that defense when you have a Matt Milano go down, when you have in this game Trey White, maybe your best player and your entire roster goes down, and an undrafted free agent Levi Wallace comes in and is able to play that quarterback one spot. I wish we had a different guy besides Lafayette Pitts. I wish we had another Levi Wallace.
It's a perfect example where we would have a better quality backup if we had that cap space, and next year we will. I feel confident.
Yeah, and that's where we had that kind of conversation about Levi Wallace. Somebody tweeted out that they think that he can really compete for that cornerback too, and I think today he made a better case for being able to compete for that spot. And I'm okay with him competing for that spot. Quarterback 2 still a really good priority for me in free agency, and I won't be mad if they address cornerback in the draft as well and create real sense of competition there. But how awesome would it be if Levi Wallace was your guy that was coming in as the backup if Trey White goes down and you had a better cornerback too, like that type of depth too, building off that is only going to make this defense much more improved. So I don't really have much else to say about the defense. Super excited about Tremaine Edmonds after this game. He had an up and down season.
Awesome game.
Yeah. You like to see these guys finish on these high notes, even though the game doesn't matter. You want to take that success into the offseason and really build on that foundation. And so I'm happy he was able to do that. Before we get into our favorite conversation, obviously we love talking about special teams over here, but I want to talk about, after we talk about those two major positions or two major units, we've talked a lot about Danny Crossman and not wanting him back next year, and a little bit with Juan Castillo. There's been some rumblings as obviously coaches are starting to get fired. We're going to see a lot of it coming up this week. Who's actually going to be getting fired and what positions are going to be open this year. There's only so many names. The NFL is really a retread network, and only so many names pop up every year. But you've heard Brian Daboll's name associated to some jobs. I've heard a little bit of rumblings that Leslie Frazier may get an interview or two. Are we worried about that? We're excited about the trend of this team and optimism and things moving forward in the right direction. Losing one of those guys could be a real kind of, stick in the tire. Are we worried about it legitimately, or is it something that, they're going to get their interviews, but I think we're fine?
Yeah, so I'm going to say I think that neither of them are likely to get a head coaching job. So I think both of them have a low percentage chance of ending up with a job. However, that percentage is not zero. So I think that's similar to what happened to us the year that we ended up losing Patton, where everything was fine, and then all of a sudden something weird fell through and another guy turned down a job, and then they couldn't get something done, and then all of a sudden, we still like Patton, and then we lost him last minute. That's not out of the question that, depending on, like you said, there's not a crazy list of guys out there that look like the next head coach, and if we have 7 or 8 openings, that's a lot of openings. So I don't think it's likely. I don't think that either of them are going to, but that chance is not 0%. There is a chance that one of them gets it. And I do think that I do think that we might only get one more year out of Daboll. If we have a good offense next year, I do think that he could set himself up for a job here. So I think that continuity is huge. I think it's really important that we have the right voices there to maintain consistency. I think that's a big opportunity for us going into next year, and I think we have some good up-and-coming coaches. But realistically, I think McDermott and Bean need to be preparing for who that next voice might be on the offensive side, to be prepared if something does come up for Dable that we're ready to do that. So I hope not, but that chance is not zero.
Yeah, no, and I hope not as well. But yeah, some of those scenarios that you talked to kind of popped into my mind as I was, talking about bringing this conversation up, and you just never know in these instances. I didn't ever expect Doug Marrone to get another head coaching job so quickly. You just don't know, and these names don't. Like you said, I can't really think of who's that next guy. You always hear people calling for guys that are in the broadcast booth. Hey, let's bring back Bill Cowher, because there isn't a lot of names associated to coaches. And a lot of guys are choosing to stay in college or even leave the NFL to go to college because the jobs become so cushy, such long-term deals, lots of money up front. It's a lot easier to deal with and go through the recruiting process than it is to deal with NFL players a lot of the time. So not a ton of names, definitely something I'm keeping my eye on, because I know a lot of people out there on the Twitterverse are not happy with Dable. I like it. I like where he's going. I think you said it earlier. I think he called his best game here to end the year. And I only see that growing with him and Allen. I want to see that continue. I want to see this offense evolve. And I think he's the right guy to bring this forward. And then Leslie Frazier, I obviously love. He and McDermott had a little bit of an issue early in the year. Both professionals, that it didn't come outside of one Bills drive, whatever it was going on with the taking over the play calling early in the year. They were able to work together for the rest of the year and really did a great job in second halves of matching what the other team was doing. And to lose that would be a horrible thing, I think, for the Bills, because I really think that they have a great working relationship, and the continuity of the defense is going to be the most important thing to pull that offense forward for a nice playoff run. I don't expect any continuity to be over there on the special teams, and I couldn't be happier about that. Yeah, I love continuity, but I don't want it at all on the special teams side of the ball. So is there anything that we haven't discussed on special teams that we could even discuss, or is it just clean, burn this thing to the ground and, keep Hauschka, bring back your guy, Bjorquez, and let's roll with that with a new coordinator?
I think that makes the most sense. I think that with the new coordinator there, and then like I've said many times, that the depth of the roster is the special team. So having more Raphael Bushes and more of those high quality depth guys, I think makes a lot of sense. Having 10 draft picks, I think helps with that we're going to be able to bring in the right kind of guys to fit those roles. And then you saw some developments from your Saran Neals and your Corey Thompsons, that if that's the bottom end of our roster next year, we're going to be in pretty good shape. So I don't think so. And I think the continuity is important at the top, but I also think accountability matters, and having some turnover within the position coaches is healthy, and that it's okay to have some shuffling there. If we see Juan Castillo, if we see David Culley, if we see some other guys like that shuffle around, I think that's very healthy to be able to do that. So I think that we're going to need to bring that in, and that we'll see more movement like that as we go forward. But as long as our head stays steady, that we're going to have the same GM, same head coach, same offensive coordinator, same defensive coordinator, that's the continuity I care about.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I agree. And I don't think that as much as some people on the internet would like for all that to get shaken up, I don't see any possible way that happens. Eyeball Billy here in the chat says, with Kyle retiring, when do you think they draft defensive line? And I think on this one, I think Brandon Beane has really been very honest about where they view that position. And so is Sean McDermott. And I think that if the right guy fell to him early, they would go for it. Real game changer, sure. But
you're telling me Quinnen Williams or Ed Oliver is there at the 9th or 10th pick? Okay.
Yeah, there's a discussion, right? Like, let's seriously talk about this. But I don't think that it's a super priority for them. I think they got a lot of guys. They like the rotation. We talked a little bit about it, that you and I have to defend the Star Lotulelei snap count with these truthers out there that want to say how bad of a contract it is because they associate it to a snap count. That is what the Bills want. So I don't think that they're going to put overarching priority to go like frantically find a replacement for Kyle Williams. I think they would rather have you talk to the depth that they'll be able to bring in and bringing in a little bit higher depth guys. I think they want to bring back Jordan Phillips. I think they want guys like that where they can just rotate good talent across the line and keep a healthy rotation. When guys go down, you're not worried about a huge drop off. I think that is the vision that they see for this defensive line. I don't know that they're going to overreach to really fill that role.
I think another piece that speaks to that is the versatility of Shaq Lawson. I think you can afford to bring back Jordan Phillips. I think Kyle's retirement increases the urgency of bringing back Jordan Phillips. I also think that maybe if, obviously if a stud falls to us right now, I just got an update on here that we are locked into either the 9th or the 10th pick. So our worst case scenario is the 10th overall pick. Our best case scenario is the 9th overall pick. And it depends on the Broncos and the Browns here. So if the Broncos and Browns win, we pick 9th. There's some combinations there, but our worst case is 10th. So I think we're in a very good
flip
spot.
A coin.
Yeah, top 10 pick. We're in a good spot. I'm happy with today. But Shaq Lawson is a player that the versatility allows, where he can come in inside, kick into defensive tackle on third down. You don't need maybe that high-end penetrating defensive tackle that costs a little bit more or takes a higher draft pick. Maybe you can piece that together a little bit differently. Don't get me wrong. Anybody who watched the Alabama game last night, Quinnen Williams is a monster. So if he's available and he can disrupt and blow apart pockets, I'm fine with a guy like that. But I would personally rather that we get a franchise tackle, offensive tackle in the first round, or a stud. Maybe we trade down and get a tight end or a wide receiver or whatever, fill an offensive spot, and then piece together that fourth defensive tackle. Because with Harrison Phillips, Star Latuile, and Jordan Phillips, I think we don't necessarily have to have a monster there to still be productive and keep that rotation up. And when you talked to Shaq earlier, I can't believe that we're in a spot where I would even consider picking up his 5th-year option. And now I actually think it's a discussion. Yeah. We have him under contract in the last year of his rookie year deal next year. And it's at a good number, $3 million and change. And the 5th-year option is a healthy number. It's $10.2 million, but we have the most cap space in the league in 2020. And it might not be terrible to pick that up. And I can't believe I would ever be saying that when coming into this year, that was an automatic. So I don't know that I still want to pay $10.2 million. I might prefer that we re-sign him on a 3-year deal that's more in the $6 to $8 million, a Trent Murphy type contract. But it's a possibility now, and I can't believe that. That's awesome. That speaks to the season that Shaq had, that we're even going to consider that.
Yeah, no, I think he's made a case for sure. I think they're going to have a hard discussion of what to do with Shaq, but I do believe that everybody at One Bills Drive would like to have him here and bring him back. We talked to that continuity. I think he's part of what they are building for the future. So good on him to be able to make us have that conversation, because I was really hard on him this summer and I expected a lot, and he didn't do necessarily what I expected in the areas I wanted him to hit, but he did enough for me to say, you know what, I think they should have that conversation. So we're going to go ahead and start to wrap up this show here. It's week 17. We got a long off season here to go. We're going to start you off with a show Wednesday, kind of just wrapping up the whole season here in a nice little bow. We just had Christmas. We're going to present you a nice little package version of this whole season as we get into the off season. But Greg, where can the people that are seeing your beautiful hair, by the way, for the first time, where can they find you, and what should we look for from you heading in here to the off season?
You can always find me on Twitter. I am found at Greg Thompsett, GregTompsett. Love to have a lot of fun with Bills fans. Follow back everybody in Bills Mafia. And really, as Aaron said, I did have a lot of fun on there this week. I was moved with the fact that I am with my wife's family and my in-laws in Cleveland today. You guys might have heard the cheering in the background when the Browns scored, I'm pretty sure. But I wasn't able to go to Kyle's last game. So I thought that it was the right thing to do. I picked up a couple sets of tickets and bought 4 tickets to the game, and had everybody kind of retweet and send it out, and ended up sending a handful of people, some families who got to go, some kids who got to see their first game, and that I figured that's what Kyle deserved, to be able to do that. So always looking to have a good time and interact with Bills fans and try to do what we can to represent the Bills Mafia correctly.
Yes, and also try to make me look good. He's out there trying to make me seem like a decent human being. You're my yin to my yang, or whatever it would be. So you can find me at Aaron Quinn 716. I'm also interacting with Bills fans again. Just like to have fun conversation. I really think that it's going to be a fun 2019. I'm so excited that I've never been so excited and so hyped up to get through. Obviously, it was a little bittersweet today as the last game, as the quarters were falling off. I said, I'm not going to be able to watch the Bills for so many months, but I've never been this excited to get to this point and know that here's this offseason we've been waiting for. Let's really get this, knock this thing out. And so, like I said earlier, if you're looking for the content that's really going to push you here through this grind of the offseason, it's long. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a long offseason. You're going to need content to keep you going all throughout this offseason. So make sure you head over to cover1.net. check out the premium subscription. Check out if it's for you. I think it is. You can check it out. Go look there. Make sure that you subscribe to this to our YouTube channel. Click that little notification bell there. Then you get notified when we go live. I know that Eric and Nate are going to be doing a ton of film breakdowns now that the season's wrapped up, and they can really take the totality of the film and find the things that they want to share with fans. I know those are coming out, so you're going to get a bunch of that stuff. So make sure you're getting the notifications when they go live or when new videos come out. You're going to want to see it. Wherever you get your podcast, please give us a like, subscribe. And if you like the podcast, give us a review, because that's really what keeps us going. We just do this because we're fans that like to spread this message and talk about the Bills. We don't do it really for any other reason. So you fans interacting with us and coming on and helping us out and get through these shows is really what keeps us going. And just on behalf of Cover One, I want to thank everyone who came out this season every week and joined us for this show. We really appreciate it, guys. It's really awesome to get on here, do this show, kind of put yourself out there in a way, and see the chat box going and see the comments on the YouTube page and in Twitter, and saying, that people are happy we're doing this show and they like the show and things like that. It just means the world to all of us, because we put a lot of work into it and really want to give you the product that you want. So make sure that you follow everything that we're doing and retweeting all the stuff and part of it, because it's really all for you guys. And just want to wish everyone a really happy new year, a happy, safe new year. And I think we'll catch you this coming Wednesday, right, Greg?
Sounds great, man. Can't wait.
Awesome. So we'll see you this Wednesday for our first, non-season conversation. So I can't wait to join you guys. And again, thanks for everything you guys do for us. And we'll catch you on the next one.